everybody! Back again for another Monday of stories and stuff. So this time around I'm actually reading things I've written. I forgot and didn't go looking for things I was did to read. Except for the Velveteen Rabbit, but had to read now, all things considered. So yeah. I have short stories. 2 deal with Persephone and Hades, and 1 deals with Icarus and Daedalus. I do like rewriting Greek mythology, so I've been doing a lot of that. Most of these have been written, in fact, all of these have been written, specifically for, I have a group called Entwined Rhapsody. A couple years ago we performed at the Summer Showcase, the fun little get-together after the summer reading program. And did some of our stories there. So there's 3 of us. Go by Persephone. Courtney goes by Cerberus. Used to call her just Puppy. Mary goes by Lee. Gotten. It's been about 2 years since we've sad. But so if you ever want to look that up, look up any stories we've done so far, we have YouTube channel. It's Entwined Rhapsody. But it'll be just me today. So these are all things I have written. I hope you enjoy. Stories in my Google Drive. We're gonna start with Icarus. He attached the first feather. Daedalus tried to still his shaking hands. He had to work quickly before a guard brought their next meal. The old inventor deftly wrapped twine around each feather added to the skeletal wings he had built from willow branches. He attached the 5th feather. His hands calmed as he worked, not bringing confidence in his craft. Minos ruled the land and the sea. No man could rule the air. The king had caged Daedalus like a bird, so like a bird would he escape. He attached the 5th feather. A joyful laugh broke the meditative state of the room. Daedalus closed his eyes, ignored that sound which he loved so much. He attached the 25th feather. Dad! Icarus tugged on his father's arm, loosening a knot. Dad, look! He said proudly when Daedalus finally looked up. The boy had tightly wound twine around a pale yellow candle, one Daedalus had stolen and hidden wax. Into the candle, Icarus had shoved in and shaped leftover twigs into delicate, veined wings. I made a bee! Once, Daedalus would have praised his artistic boy's work, fashioned a mobile for it so it could fly about their room. Now, with thoughts only on freeing himself and his poor son from this tower, the man reached out, yanking the creation away. Must conserve these, said in a severe tone. The carefree child tilted his head, crunching his eyebrows. Daedalus sighed, unwinding the twine from the waxy bee. Cannot play with the twine or the wax. Glanced around the room, seeing a mess of feathers everywhere. Or feathers, he added, shaking his head. But Dad, I'm bored, Icarus said, folding his arms. Daedalus only shook his head. He attached the 21st feather. All you let me do when I go out is bring back twigs. He attached the 22nd feather. All you let me do when I'm stuck in here is sit quietly and read. He attached the 23rd feather. Dad! Icarus shouted. He attached the 24th feather. Why won't you say anything? He attached the 25th feather. Then he looked up. I can think of no way I have not already tried to explain to you that this is for the best. You'll understand when you come of age and we are free. He said no more and only focused on up and placing each feather. A patchwork of colors was emerging. Ocean blues from some islands, fluffy brown softness from an unfortunate ruff, little gray flecks from many gulls by the seaside, various shades of steel from the small sandwich love to follow Icarus, the largest, sparkling white feathers from the great white eagle. He attached the 100th feather. Then he hid the wings, which looked as though they had hardly any feathers. A guard would come with supper soon. No longer focused, he could hear soft whimpers from beneath the bed. No matter how he coaxed, he could not draw his son back out that night. 1 more month, he told himself. Not long now, he said out loud, but Icarus did not. Itchy nose. The first feather fell. Icarus squirmed and twisted. He couldn't stop looking over his shoulder. Wings! His father had made such pretty soft wings. Soon they would know more than the tower and the beat. More people besides surly guards and a testy king. Hold still, child, Daedalus said, giving the fastening a final tug. His voice trembled between a sharp scolding and an anxious command. Icarus wished he would just make up his mind whether he wanted to yell or not. He had helped his father into his wings first. The room felt cramped, though Icarus did not know if it was the cluster or his excitement which were shortening his breaths. Second feather fell, but freedom stretched just outside the window. Icarus, Daedalus said, and his voice wavered again even on just his name. Listen closely to me. Stay right behind me as we fly. If you do not give enough and fly too low, the water and salt of Poseidon's sea will weigh down your feathers and take you. Become too prideful and fly too high, the sun's heat will melt the wax holding together your feathers and will throw you to your death. Icarus nodded, but he stared out the window as his father spoke. He was going to get close to the sky. Perhaps, he thought, he could even touch a star. Though his father had spoken of nothing else for so long, he hesitated at the window. Icarus shifted from foot to foot, faster and faster, until finally, Daedalus leapt from the window, spreading his wings wide as he dropped into the night sky. Without waiting to see if his father's invention had worked, Icarus flung himself from the window immediately after. The third feather fell. The wind cradled around them both, and their wings caught the air current. With heavy flaps they rose, clumsily but assuredly, higher and higher into the dark sky. His imagination could not prepare Icarus for the splendors of the cold wind ruffling his hair like a proud mother, or the spiced air filling his nostrils like a grandfather's cologne, or the sharp currents stinging like a little sibling's happy pin. The boy gave a happy yelp, staring down into the twinkling vastness of the ocean, reflecting what was both above and below its blue surface. Part of him wanted to dive in, but his father veered more sharply upward and eastward, and Icarus followed away from the waters in between. And then, all the harmonies of the sea. Out here, away from the land, away from the mountains crowding or distance separating them, Icarus felt surrounded by them, could have sworn he heard music in their lights. Warmth spread in his chest, despite the volleys of cold air keeping him aloft. His gaze kept drifting away from his father's sturdy wings, exploring instead the vastness of the heavens above. He drifted higher and higher and higher. The fourth feather fell. Freedom, one star sang to him. Another. Eternity, the next one hummed. Happiness, called one more. A faint one whispered. For a moment, Icarus stopped beating his wings, drawing back one arm to reach up for that glorious sound, and found himself falling through the air to just behind his father again. The fifth feather fell. He caught himself, arms beating in the air. Never before had he wanted so badly to make sure he kept himself aloft, kept himself alive. Before Daedalus could scold him, Icarus shifted and shot straight up towards the heavens again, flying higher and higher and higher. Is that what you offer? He asked in a voice that vanished in the gale. It is all I am, Star replied. Who are you? A star too small to have been named, they said. Icarus, Daedalus called from below. The sixth and seventh feathers fell. The sun peeked over the horizon, lording herself over the stars, forcing them to disappear one by one. Eighth and ninth and 10th feathers fell. Can I see you? You cannot fly far enough. More feathers fell. Can I help you? Icarus asked, flying even higher yet. Icarus, fly lower, the sun! More feathers fell. He could not listen to his father. Their song grew too loud, drowning even the sound of the waves below. I am dying, they said. I must fall to a grave in your earth. He remained high above the horizon, high above his only family, and yet too low for this wonder. The sun rose higher herself, and her passionate heat burned him even more. He felt wax drip onto his back, burn his arms, but still he flew higher. I will catch you. You will die too. Icarus, you deserve to die with love, and I deserve the same. The last feather fell. So too did a star. That was Courting the Stars. I forgot to give the title. So next we've got 2 Persephone and stories. Looking for something to read that's free and you like comic books or graphic novels, or even if you don't know if you like comic books or graphic novels and you want to give it a try, there is a called a webtoon. It's an app on your phone, and it's free to read. You pay to get things early access. There's a lot of issues out, so you don't have to do that. But so it's called Webtoons, and there is a series called Lore Olympus, and it's really good. It's really pretty. That if you're looking for free to read. Also, if you're looking for things free to read, Hoopla, Overdrive, both of those can be found on our website, and those will let you rent books and music and audiobooks and TV series and movies, all for free. Both have different catalogs, so you can both there. We're going to do Gathering Flowers, which is first meeting. The sun shone brightly when Hades fell in love. When he saw Persephone, daughter of the harvest, for the first time, she danced round the lake, playing with the nymphs Acaste, Admete, and Neaira. Gathered armfuls of flowers, naming one with loving care. She wove wreaths of the lake-bound nymphs. She happily splashed water into the sunlight, cascading rainbows around herself. He did not wait to see her a second time before he pled with to have her as his wife. You have always scoffed at beauty and love, said the king of the gods. What changed? I saw the purest flower, said the king of the underworld. But everything you touch wilts. Whatever you love must die. Even death would not dampen her beauty. Wilted, she would outshine all. I must have her. Perhaps it was not love after all? Zeus offered no further arguments. Persephone was gathering flowers for the last crown when a golden glint caught her eye. She saw a flower she had no name, the most beautiful she had seen, many paces from the lake. Persephone, come back! Cried the nymphs. Entranced, Persephone paid them no heed. Must have it, she breathed, tried to pluck the flower. It resisted. She tugged and planted her feet into the ground and tried with a might she had never summoned before to tear it from the earth. Persephone, leave it! Cried the nymphs. Determined, Persephone paid them no heed. Finally, the flower gave way to her. She stumbled back with the momentum until a black steed halted her progress. Turned. The sun eclipsed behind a helmet when Persephone fell in love. When she saw Hades, king of the underworld, for the first time, he cast a shadow that cooled her sun-bitten skin. She didn't think to scream as he pulled her from the ground, held her to his chest, and galloped away. The nymphs wailed for her. No one heard their protests until Demeter came looking for her child. Flowers and vines pulled by Persephone grew again in Demeter's wake. Where is Persephone? She asked, her voice a warm spring breeze. She was taken, cried Acaste. By who? She asked, her voice a hot afternoon. The lord of the underworld, cried Admete. Where? She asked, her voice the quiet in the heart of the storm. We know not, cried Neaira. And you did nothing? She screamed, and gales tore the surface of the lake. We could not, the nymphs cried together. Worthless fools! The mother of the earth waved her hand, spat a curse, and the beautiful nymphs turned into scale and feather sirens. Then her anger turned into grief, for she knew not of any entrances to the underground. Desperately she searched far and wide, going madder and madder with despair. Most could or would not tell her, till tender-hearted Hecate finally took her. The goddess of the crossroads knew that particular crossroad well. Come, dear mother of the earth, she whispered, and led Demeter to the nearest entrance. But no one came, no matter how they pounded on the door. Demeter hissed, and then screamed, and then pled, and then wept, and then fell to her knocks, hiding. The bringer of the harvest sat there for many long days, and the earth grew barren for her neglect. Faced with a dying world, Zeus had no choice but to find Demeter. He tried to reason with her. She would listen to no one without having her daughter back. Zeus rescinded his decision, bombarded by increasing fervent prayers to the hungry. He let Hecate into the kingdom of death to deliver the news and fetch Persephone. Down below, Persephone attempted to reconcile new love with old love. Hades enchanted her, but missed her mother. The world below was cool and inviting, but she yearned to the sun. She wove the petals of the magnificent flower into her hair. As she did, she could feel it dying, failing in this sunless world, just as she felt her own body dying. "The only one of its kind?" she asked. "Yes." "I wish I had not taken it. See how it wilts." Hades cupped her face. "But you love it." "I will only be able to love its memory once it dies," she said. "Here, everything is already dead. There is eternity, even in death." Persephone gave an innocent smile. "That is a hope. But still I wish it could live again." That was when Hecate found them. "Live again you must," she said, and delivered the news of Demeter's anguish and Zeus' predicament. Persephone did not know how to feel. Joyful to see her mother again? Despairing to lose her first love? She stared wordlessly at Hecate, torn with indecision, though she knew she had no choice against Zeus's orders. Hades suddenly buried one hand into her thick hair, lodging one of the petals. "You love me," he whispered in a muffled voice. "Yes." "And trust me?" "Yes." "Then kiss me." Persephone put her hands demurely on his shoulders, pressing her lips against his. He deepened the kiss, making her squeak, and she tasted a sweet sharpness on her tongue. She wondered first if that was how kisses tasted. Then she felt 6 heart shapes. She bit down on them and recognized the taste of pomegranate. "Farewell," Hades said, kissing the top of her head gently. "Farewell," Persephone said. Hecate took the maiden by the hand, leading her back to the sunlit lands. Persephone blinked in the searing light, almost staggering back. Arms embraced her and pulled her forward, and the top of her head was kissed again. "Oh, my daughter," Demeter cried, holding her close against her chest. "Mother!" Persephone threw her arms around Demeter, finally laughing, carefree as a child again. The cold winds abated, but as Demeter looked down at Persephone, she knew something had changed. "Do you eat anything down below?" she asked. First, Persephone felt childish, as if she needed to hide what she did, but then she stood straighter, nodding resolutely. 6 pomegranate seeds." Demeter's eyes went wide. "Do you know what that means?" Persephone shook her head. "You ate food of the underworld. You are bound there forever." Persephone's heart skipped 2 different beats. Hades suddenly appeared at the entrance to the underworld. "How could you trick my innocent girl like that?" "I am no monster," Hades said evenly. "I am here to propose a deal. I ask for only 1 month as..." "You did this to undermine Zeus." "I did this, but I love her." Hades turned to Persephone. "Plant the remains of the flower," he instructed. "It will bloom. When it wilts and dies in 6 months, it will be time for you to return to my arms. When again it blooms, mother's embrace." Persephone smiled, kissed Hades gently on the cheek. Then she turned to kiss his mother also on the cheek. "I love you," he said to both. And each year their flower bloomed again, more beautiful for each winter's. That was their meeting, and then I wound up writing one. It's about the same length. Sorry, faces. So I read another one that was thousands of years later, where the honeymoon period kind of wore off. Our last story for tonight, or today, or whenever it is that you're watching this, because you could be watching this at midnight or right when I uploaded it too. Who knows? One is called Forever. Forever seemed much shorter thousands of years ago. Hades adjusted his blazer, hands moving awkwardly. He did not like being away from his realm. Up here, towering buildings had replaced lush forests. Pavement had replaced soft dirt paths. Had replaced warm bonds. He never bothered to keep his own realm up to date with the advancements of humanity. He enjoyed the confusion on the faces of mortals. He did not like this fetching of his wife, had not for the past century. His sharp fist rapped on the harsh metal door of her apartment. It burned his knuckles, but he bit inside his lip and let no flint go. The door opened with the silence of a freshly oiled hinge. Opened with the silence of their throat. Sunlight behind him offered the only light inside, wispy darkness reminding him of home. The woman in front of him reminding him of home. Stephanie leaned against the doorframe, one hand still on the door. Her other hand rested across her stomach, hand curled around the hem of her top. "You're almost late." Before and after her words, her lips drew back. It was neither a smile or a frown, her chapped lips as straight and cold as the buildings. Hades wanted to say how he missed the mischief and fire in her eyes. "One day I shall be," he said, just to see the world burn in eternal summer. Her mouth twisted for the length of a breath. He could not decipher the expression. "I wonder." "Your mother always had a flair for such dramatics," he said dryly. "I haven't spoken to her in forever." "I spoke to her 307 years ago." Her eyebrows raised and her eyes flashed, almost drawing a smile from him. He turned away. "I think you'd be surprised." He said nothing else, walking back into the dark apartment, door left yearning open. "Close the door behind you." A minute. Hades hesitated. She had never asked him inside before. She had not exactly asked this time either, but left it inferred. As he entered her second home, it occurred to him that was the crux of their communication now. Vague statements plagued by interpretation. Arguments with things yelled, things muttered under warm breath, things left unsaid. Absence. Persephone was heat, passion. She did a lot of the yelling. Hades was cold and calmness. He did a lot of the muttering. Both of them took Cerberus on walks to talk to a neutral party who could not misunderstand because he could not start to understand. The door closed with a cold silence. The darkness almost felt comforting, but the manufactured air threatened to suffocate him. Killed, recycled, man-made. He shivered. Perhaps this was why humans made the faces they did upon entering his realm, grappling with being surrounded by all things God made, said. He reached out. He could see vague shapes, but the darkness was absolute. His caves and kingdom had fire and glowing magics, illuminating moss and pebbles and rivers. Not even a hint of muffled sunlight through a curtain or man-made light through a crack below a door made any dent in this shroud of darkness. But Persephone loved the sun. If ever he could not find her, he knew he only had to search one cave, its rocky ceiling carved through in wide patterns, letting sunlight filter in and leave the cave bright and warm. Why, then, did she leave this second home drowning in darkness? He felt along the walls, moving with a cautious step to not hit anything. Never had he been so keenly aware of himself. Unfamiliar with this room, it took nearly a minute for his hand to find the light switch. He flipped it quickly. Darkness. Hades stood there, fused. Electricity hummed in the apartment, through the air being cooled and forced to circulate. Persephone had power. Why the lack of lights? Especially here, where she could revisit her old life of light and flowers and living. He had not planned to break the tense silence, but curiosity warmed deep into his heart, following the same path carved by his fascination with Persephone when he first saw her so long ago. His mouth opened a few times before he finally got any words out. "Why the darkness?" he asked. He heard a laugh from his left. Sound followed the curiosity into his core, warming his insides, even though it sounded faint and as brittle as fall leaves. Because then it feels like home. Before he could stop himself, a question tumbled from his lips. "Is this what home feels like to you?" There was a faint noise of a door opening. Weighted down footsteps padded out of that room. He felt the air move as Persephone stopped right in front of him. smelling of roses and lilacs and hard water. The darkness. Doesn't feel like this to you? No, he responded, feeling a curious tickle in his throat. I can see there. That laugh again. You are cold and blind, love, said. The tickle in his throat hurt this time. I am not! A yell. That was the strange feeling in his throat, an upturn of his own voice. You know, he said with that cool single tone Hades often used. I did this to feel more like you. Her laugh was fresher this time, bright, a freshly watered crocus. And now look, it makes you more like me. How curious. I do not understand, he said, but he recognized his own lie as he spoke it. This frightened him, this cold darkness and being enclosed within a metal building. The fear sparked, created an ember, added to the heat inside his chest. I think you do. Suddenly her hands fumbled against him, searching for his hands. When she found them, she tugged downward, dropping to the floor. Sit, he said, the command coming after she had already taken away his balance. They both sat on the hard floor, legs sprawled and touching, hands damp and touching, more contact than they had managed in the past few years. They sat in darkness and silence for a minute, then 2, then 3. You called me love, Katie said, the one to break the heavy silence again. Did that surprise you? The question itself startled him. He thought about it for a moment. No, he finally said, finding himself eager to answer the question. But it was pleasing to hear out loud. Another laugh. Hades drank the sound in, realizing how parched he had been for that sweet nectar. It was pleasing to say, too, Persephone admitted. Can we say more things? He asked, even as he felt his throat starting to close up, embarrassment threatening to silence him. Perhaps if they kept talking, she could keep him warm and he could keep her cool and they could actually communicate. Finally. The answer did not come immediately, but suddenly she lifted his hand in hers, kissed the top of each hand gently. Autumn can wait a few days. One darkness persisted. The other melted away like the night sky at dawn. That was forever. What's up? So those are our 3 stories for today. Shorter than last week's. Last week went a very long time. Again, if you have any suggestions for stories you would like to hear, I will see if they are available in either public domain or if their publishers have said that it is okay for us to read them out loud if we after this. The comments either on YouTube or and that's gonna do it for today. Sorry, it's a little bit shorter today. Have a craft room to go organize and a grab method to go take care of and antibiotics to take because I got a sinus infection. Which is, better than getting some other things. And very sheltered in place at home, and I hope you all are doing the same if you're able to. If you're not, that you are staying safe, doing okay, and hope we all get to see you here in this rather than later. We will keep you up to date on Facebook when we ever find out anything, when we have a better idea of when we might be opening back up, posting it there on our website, everywhere. We're going to try to keep you all in the loop. Remember that you can give us a call. We're checking answering machines every day, and we'll give you a call back from our cell phone numbers each day that we can. Or you can Facebook message us. I've got to go respond to some of those after I upload this video. And you can email us, go on the website. So let us know if you need to contact us. That's going to do it for today. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, whenever you are watching this. And we will see you next time.